Hey friends, Shawn here, or if you're one of our youth that happen to be watching this, Shawn, and happy to be joining with you for this week's edition of our Midweek Encouragement. If you've ever found yourself in a dark room or dark place with little to no light, one of these your phone actually would be very beneficial, is helpful for you guys. Even though the light, now you may have a flashlight app, but even just the screen light here that you have on your phone, it's not very bright, but it's very helpful to be able to find things if you locked your keys outside of your car or something, it's a dark parking lot, or if you happen to be at the movie theater with your kids watching Avengers Endgame and you drop your keys and your credit card on the sticky movie theater floor, the light, even a small light, is very helpful to be able to catch your bearings and be able to find your way. So at this point, you might be tuning in and wondering, what does all of this rambling have to do with this week's Midweek Encouragement? So let's get right into that. So we're continuing on in our series looking at the 7 I am statements that Jesus made in John chapter 8. And this week's verse and statement we find in John chapter 8, verse 12. It says, Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you will have the light that leads to life. Now, reflecting on this, I remember back in my earlier days of youth ministry, and there's a ministry, an organization called Youth for Christ, and they used to have these videos, that evangelism videos, how to share your faith, and one of them had this older lady, and she was just sitting in a rocking chair, and she was reading through John chapter 8, and she talked about how, further on in John 8, verse 32, Jesus talks about knowing the truth, and that truth will set you free. And she said that before the truth sets you free, it'll make us flinch. And I really thought about that statement because it's so true, because both in the physical and spiritual realm, and physically, when you're in a dark room and you're stumbling about trying to find the light, it's the light that you need. But actually, the more you remain in the darkness, something happens where our eyes and our senses actually become accustomed to the dark, and you kind of get used to it. So then, after a while, when you eventually find the light switch or a light source and you turn the lights on, there's a bit of a flinching and adjustment that happens. It's kind of the same thing that when you wake up in the morning, early, it's still dark out, somebody flicks on the light and you're like, dude, stop, get that out of here. There's an adjustment that our eyes have to make. And this verse is talking about that to a world that's lost in darkness, Christ himself offers himself as a guide to us. He's our light. He's the light that changes us and transforms us. And so just like when the light goes on in darkness in the physical realm, the spiritual realm, it's not all that uncommon that when the light of Christ shines in our lives to reveal truth to us, that there's kind of a flinching that happens. It's the truth that we're looking for. It's the light of Christ that we're looking for in our lives. But when you've been accustomed and used to living in darkness for so long, in a certain type of way and lifestyle, Bible talks about that separating the old life from the new life. There's a flinching that happens. And when we ask Christ to come into our lives and give us direction, to show us what's true, he illuminates our lives for us, shines in and some of the sin that's in our own lives that we need to deal with. Sometimes there's tension, there's a pushback, there's a flinching that happens in our lives. And it's important, you need to know, and I need to know, we all need to know that the darkness and evil that we encounter in our lives can't snuff out the light of Christ's love for you. No matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, no matter what you said. So just like any light can pierce through the thickest darkness, the light of Christ can pierce through any darkness that you're going through in your life right now and that you'll ever encounter. In fact, even just to illustrate that, if you go back further in John chapter 8 and a couple earlier verses, we'll read about a woman who was caught in adultery. So she's brought to Jesus, and instead of Jesus condemning her, just pointing the finger at her, he actually exposes the darkness and the sin that's lurking in the hearts and the minds and the intentions of the men that were accusing her. And so then Jesus speaks those words to her that we just read in verse 12, that he's the light of the world, not the religious leaders, not their man-made rules, but he's the light. And when we follow Jesus, we won't walk in darkness. We won't have to live in darkness when we follow his light. And on the other side of that, for us, for those of us that would be believers that have given our lives to Christ and are following him the best that we can, Jesus calls us to the responsibility of walking and living in the light so that we are pointing lost people, lost souls, to the one who actually brings the light to our darkness, who breathes life into our souls. And so today, it's no shocker to know that the world that we live in is in deep darkness. There's sickness and there's sin, there's evil, there's ignorance, there's violence all around us. And yet, in his goodness and in his grace, Christ Jesus came from heaven to earth, born into this fallen race so that we could experience the saving truth of his love, to shine into the deepest part of your heart, the deepest part of my heart and our soul, to expose us to the light of his gospel message, that whoever would believe in him through faith, that we would be removed from that kingdom of darkness and placed into the light, the brightness of God's eternal kingdom that's available for all of us. So I hope that brings you some encouragement today in your lives. I pray that you'll allow Jesus to be your light, to follow him, to walk in the light as he is in the light, and that in that, people would see the light of Christ in your life. They would see the light of Christ in my lives, and that would just point them to the source of light. It's not us, it's not you, it's not me. Jesus is the light and the source. So I pray that that would bring some encouragement to you, some challenge where it's needed, the encouragement where it's needed, and that you and I would be able to walk in his light. God bless you guys. We'll see you soon.